Welcome to the Family Brand Show. We're Chris and Melissa Smith of FamilyBrand.com, husband and wife, parents of 5, and we want to help you take back your family and to live life on your terms.
And we know being a family can feel really overwhelming. Parents tell us they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. It's so challenging to navigate the uncertainty and all the chaos that's happening in the world right now.
And that's why we want to bring you every single week actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become a better parent, to become a better spouse, and to build a stronger family. And look, there's never been a better time and a more important time than right now to take back your family. You can define what your family stands for, or the world is going to do it for you. And the world needs strong families now more than ever. And it starts right here with your family.
It's not too late for the Family Brand Blitz, which is coming up November 7th and 8th. We would love to have you there. You've probably heard us talk about it, but one last plug for the Family Brand Blitz. If you have spent, I feel like a lot of people can relate to it in this way. If you have a business, you've spent a lot of time and money investing in developing your people and your culture and your mission and your vision and your values. Take a minute and ask yourself, have I ever done the same thing for my family? And if the answer is no, we're giving you that opportunity to do all of that and more for your family. Have an intentional getaway with your sponsor partner, and we'd love to have you in Gilbert.
It'll be cool. It'll be fun. It'll be impactful. And you're lame if you're not there. Just kidding.
I had someone recently ask me, they were trying to tell their husband about it, and she's like, I just gotta be real with you. That my husband was like, is this like multi-level marketing? Are they gonna try and recruit us into their downline? I was like, no. This is purely for you and your family. Work on developing your family a bit more this fall.
It'll mostly just be really fun and super impactful for your marriage, your relationship with your children, your family as a whole. November 7th and 8th. FamilyBrand.com. You can find the retreats.
Yep, the retreats tab at the top. Okay, so Chris and I were on a walk, diving into today's content episode. We were on a walk recently, and we were having this discussion about, if you're a Swiftie, you would know that Taylor Swift recently dropped an album. And I always say, like, I would not consider myself a Swiftie necessarily. I think I was just a little bit, I mean, I'm not too old, but I think I was like out of high school when her music really started getting popular, and I didn't follow it. Like I know that some of my sisters who are a little bit younger than me, like, grew up with Taylor Swift. I don't feel like I grew up with her, but it's definitely on my radar. Like, I know she's releasing albums and everything. Went to Paris with my sisters and watched her perform last year. And so, you know, I knew that her album was dropping at midnight, you know, the day dropped and everything. And so I listened to a couple of songs, didn't listen to the whole album, but then later Chris and I were talking on the walk. Someone that Chris follows on social media had posted something about one of her songs, about the lyrics. And Chris is like, did you know this? Like, did you know that she has a new song on her album and these are the lyrics? And I was like, actually, yes, I did. I did know that. So we just had this discussion that I thought would be interesting to bring to the podcast today. Not necessarily about that song specifically. Like, this whole episode is not about Taylor Swift, but it's like, it's deeper than that. It's, what are we allowing to influence us? What are we allowing to influence our kids? And yeah, that's the jumping off point.
And the post that I saw on social media actually wasn't about, the post started off by saying, it was a woman that I'm friends with on Facebook, and she said, I can't believe any parent, especially a mom, would ever allow their daughters to listen to, follow, or be influenced by Taylor Swift. And I was kind of like, whoa, like that's it. Well, it's also not like, I'm not a Swiftie. I don't know a whole lot of her songs. Melissa listens to some. My daughters, especially our youngest daughter, likes her. So I just like, that kind of surprised me, because what I know of Taylor Swift doesn't live in the space of like, there's a lot of darkness around her or her lyrics, and then she did go on to say, yeah, here's some of the lyrics from one of her new songs. And I was like, whoa, like, could that possibly be true? And it was like, and so then, yeah, that led to me asking Melissa if she's aware of this. I do think it is so interesting and also a little bit tricky in the sense that I tend to believe that most things in life are either promoting light or they're promoting darkness. And there's not a lot of gray area as much as the world might want to, have us believe that, oh, it's not that bad. Like, and I think Melissa even saw she saw someone else posting where a mom goes, well, I know Taylor Swift's, all of her songs aren't super great, but at least it's not as bad as, and starts referencing other artists. And it's like, well, but is that also the most useful, like, justification for it? There's actually a verse in the Book of Mormon that talks about this idea of hidden darkness. And the first time I really noticed that, I'd read it a lot before, but I was on a mission for our church, and I saw that phrase, and I was like, that's a really interesting kind of weird phrase. What hidden darkness? Like, isn't darkness kind of already hidden? And so the leader of our mission president, amazing man, Thomas Valletta, he and I had a conversation about it. And he was like, well, how would you hide darkness? And we started talking, and it's like, you would hide darkness with artificial light. You would take something that is dark, and you would make it appear to not be dark through artificial light. And I'm not saying that it's not possible that on an album, regardless of who the artist is, I guess you could have a song on that album or songs that have a lot of like light and positivity and good energy in them. And on the very same album, another song that is what I would call darkness. It's just not something I would ever want anyone to listen to, especially not my little girls. Like, and I probably argument could be made for Taylor Swift's album. And so, yeah, it's just this interesting conversation of like, what, and Melissa and I were like, we even asked, like, what are we allowing to influence our children? What are we complicit in the influencing of our children? What do we try to justify? Maybe without even knowing we're justifying it. And I think music's an interesting one. I think if there are a lot of people, even myself included at times, where you get caught up in like just the sound of an album or a song and you just love it and the beat. I think if you ever actually stopped and really looked at the lyrics and listened to them, you're like appalled at yourself. You're like, oh my gosh, I did not know that this song. And so, yeah, I don't know that there's an easy answer. And we have had some experiences where we have realized, oh, we've seen them change our children's behavior or their mood. And we've been like, okay, what's going on? And then and there's been times where we've actually seen like, oh, did you know that one of our children was reading this particular book? And maybe that's a little bit too advanced for them. Or did you know that one of our children was listening to this type of music? Media, and obviously what we consume, what we take in is what we project out. So if what we're taking in visually and auditorily is a lot of light, then that's what comes out of us. And if what we're taking in auditorily, is that even a word? Or visually?
Just go with it.
Yeah, auditorily, visually. If what we hear and see is a lot of darkness and things that aren't super like great, then that's going to come out of us.
I think we should give some specific examples. Before we started recording, we actually wrote some specific examples. And these are not meant to be like, oh, these things are good or these things are bad. These are just like how this is working in our life, things that we're looking at as a family, so you can kind of see what that's looked like over the years in action. One thing being, you mentioned like you like the beat. But then you listen to the lyrics. This is actually, it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious, but also not hilarious. Recently, this is this year, my family all happened to be in town, even some of my siblings that live out of state. And we went to my parents' house and we were doing karaoke at my parents' house, all the grandkids and everything. And one of the songs that everyone wanted to listen to, including me, like my daughter might have been the one that suggested it, was Pink Pony Club. And it's such a good beat. But I was in front of my mom, who was like a saintly woman, and then the lyrics are showing up on the screen and all of the little girls are singing this song, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
What have we done?
Exactly. What have we done? Anyway, I was just one example of me being like, oh, I listen to this song because it's fun and the beat is good, but the overall message here is not one that I think is necessarily one that I want to be promoting. And I don't want to sound like a killjoy, like we can't listen to that song. But I think that's what it comes down to sometimes, is it's like
being vigilant.
being vigilant, but also maybe reframing it. It's like that you're not being fun, but it's like, no, I have a bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is this is not, going back to your reference of like light and darkness, this doesn't feel like light. And maybe that song does for you. Again, I don't want to get into the specifics of the song, but really looking at it like, does this song feel like light, or is there like this underlying hidden
darkness? Yeah, that's actually really interesting now that you say that. And sometimes there's things that I was like, oh, I'd rather not know that. So now, because now I'm complicit. Now I can't claim ignorance or naivety. But that song in particular, me and Indian Ivy, like we have jammed out to that song and sang it at the top of our lungs. And I would actually say those have been some moments of like joy. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, what? But if you listen to the underlying lyrics, it is like, whoa. And so it's like, is that a form of like, just because it feels joyful and happy, is that light? Is that artificial darkness? Because you can have music that actually shifts you into like a positive energy and mood that have lyrics that are actually, you could argue, dark or just not great. And so I don't know. I think another example is one of our children started falling asleep listening to music on Spotify, which I didn't know how I felt about it at the beginning. And
on shuffle.
Yeah, and with Spotify, like it shuffles eventually to whatever it wants to shuffle to. And there were some times where, I mean, it only happened twice before we kind of shut it down, because like we'd walk in to wake up this particular child in the morning, and it was like, holy cow! Like it had shuffled to a song or lyrics that are like, one, that's getting into that person. Like, there's been so many studies on this that show the effects of music and energy, and like even like on crystals and how they take shape. Lately, that same child has chosen to fall asleep to music, but from a very different, like, I would say, genre. And it actually feels like amazing when you walk into the room in the morning, because it's like this peaceful energy and the type of music. So that's another example where it was really like stark to me. It wasn't just the words, it was even like the feeling of walking into the room, that you could almost feel something before you even knew what was going on. And it was totally being influenced by media or music of some kind.
Another example, this was a few years ago, and Chris and I were trying to remember the specifics, and we really couldn't, but the gist of it is one of our kids could read, was a really good reader really early on, and they wanted to read the Harry Potter series, and so they'd read almost the whole series. They were probably only 8 or 9. And they would go to bed reading it, and same thing, we started noticing like something was just different about the child.
Something was off.
Something was off. And I remember Chris woke up one day and was like, I think you need to take a break from this book, which he did. And then he eventually did.
And we noticed a change.
Yeah, we noticed a change for sure. And, and then some time went by, he got a little bit older and finished the series. But that was really interesting to me too, realizing like, I don't know, because like there's nothing necessarily bad in those books. Like those are children's books, but realizing like, okay, that for that particular child at that time was not good for him for whatever reason. But being able to like be aware of that and listen to that, and I think the hardest thing is following through as parents. Maybe that's taking, in this example, taking Pink Pony Club off of your favorites list, or returning the library book. None of that feels like hard.
Yeah, and like, okay, this Taylor Swift album, we haven't even talked about this. Our daughters, especially our youngest, loves the new Taylor Swift album. Is it you're not allowed to listen to any song on that album, or we no longer listen to Taylor Swift? Or is it like, hey, there was a song on this album that is like not a great song, and there's other songs that are like, and that's for every family to decide. But I'm literally like I'm not just asking that as a rhetorical question. I myself am like,
we're working through this right now ourselves.
Yeah, is it like because of this one song, I'm sure, and by the way, the woman who posted this, she had a lot more evidence of why her, in her opinion, she would never allow any of her daughters to ever follow, like, or listen to Taylor Swift. So but it's like, if we just, it's like, oh, because of this one song, is it like we never listen to Taylor Swift ever again or anything, she's ever put out there? But I do think, to me, this is a conversation about light and darkness. And what are we seeking out more of? And I think really probably the principle and the lesson in this, most of all for me, as I'm thinking about it, is how do I teach my children to recognize for themselves? Because we won't always be there to police things. We won't always be there to be vigilant. Even now, like, they go to school, but more so, how do we teach our children the truth of, like, what their own alignment is telling them, and how to recognize, hey, when you're watching something or listening to something or hearing something, to be able to recognize if it doesn't feel good, there's a reason for that. Like, and pay attention to that. And if it does feel good, and how to discern between light and darkness, and how to discern even, I think that one might be a little more obvious for most of us. I think actually the real challenge is how to discern between light and artificial light. Because they both on the surface appear to have light. Maybe it's not so much as like light versus darkness, because that might be super obvious, but it's like, yeah, light versus things that appear on the surface to bring light. Things that appear on the surface to make you really happy, but in the long run may not.
One more example that I had made note of is my kids have used, we've done a lot of homeschooling. Consistently, we'd use the good and the beautiful curriculum. And I remember very, very early on watching a video that Jenny Phillips, the kind of founder of the Good and the Beautiful, had put together, talking about her inspiration for, she didn't set out to write or create a business that was for homeschooling families. It was her own desire to serve her own children better. And I can't remember the specifics, and I couldn't find the video, but basically she noticed in her daughter what her daughter was, I can't remember if it was a book or if it was a TV show that she was watching, and how that was impacting how her daughter was interacting with her siblings and interacting with the world. And then she went on to talk about in this YouTube video how what we consume like really does become us. Like if you're watching a TV show and the family treats each other poorly, the siblings are always fighting, or the siblings or the children are always talking about how mom and dad are so stupid, or whatever it is, like that's modeling for our children like what it looks like to be in a relationship in a family, like how you are to treat your parents. And that I had never thought about it in that way before. And that has, am I vigilant about those all the time? No, but it has had me think a couple of times when a show has been on and we'll be watching it together, being like, you know what, guys, let's turn this off. Like, I don't like how this family is treating each other. I don't know. So I think there's other things that we can be looking at and seeing, like, how is this impacting our family too?
Yeah, and I would say again, it's the ones that aren't like super obvious. If we ever turned on a TV show and there was literally like the scene opens up and a husband's like beating his wife, or one of the parents are beating the children, and it was like really violent, we'd be like, oh my gosh, turn that off.
Right.
I think it's trickier when it's like, it's a series that's a comedy and it's funny, but I guess you have to look below the surface a little bit to be like, but what's really going on here? Maybe that's the key in this too, is like, let's look below the surface a little bit more in all things, and just be like, what is this really promoting? Because you're right, like, it'd be really easy to sit through and be like, oh, it's just funny. It's just like, but you think, no, like, it's modeling something, no, it's demonstrating something. And again, whatever I'm taking in is what I'm going to put out. So I think that's a really great example. I also think maybe one of the things that's been useful for me is whenever I find myself trying to justify something, that's kind of a first sign and a clue of like, well, why would I have to justify it if it's light? But even, and Melissa knows I'm a really good, I can justify anything and get people to go along with me, But it's like, oh, if I'm having to really justify a particular movie or social media or a video, or I'm having to really justify like music, or like, well, it's not that bad, or there's things that are worse. maybe that's another thing for us to just kind of pay attention to as a family. Because I also think you can justify, you could be like, well, let's say any artist, for example, it's like, yeah, about, half their music is awesome and half their music is stuff I don't think promotes peace and happiness and light. And look, that's for everyone to decide what they want to do with that. But then there are other artists that I listen to that like the only thing they put out is light, love, and positivity. So it's like, you can find it. And like, where am I making trade-offs? Like, because in the same day we had that conversation, I see a video by Forrest Frank. And if any of you want to say that Forrest Frank doesn't only put out light, love, and positivity, come find me and I'll fight you. Just kidding. But I really do think he does. I've never found a song or a lyric or anything that's like negative or that has a swear word in it. He even said like, he's not going to go to the Grammys. He's not going to go to these award ceremonies because he's like, no, the only award should be like the glory to Jesus and God. It's like this really amazing stance that he's taken. Like, he's like, yeah. And he and a bunch of other guys are okay. Perfect example. Super Bowl halftime show. How many raunchy, gnarly, despicable, disgusting Super Bowl halftime shows have we sat through? And probably all justified it. It's like, oh, it's a Super Bowl halftime show. And even the one that's coming up, Bad Bunny or whatever, like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
But people are up in arms on both sides, like, don't judge him, he should be able to perform. People are like, this is despicable, I'm not watching the Super Bowl. And I saw Forrest Frank and a bunch of other Christian artists who were thinking about putting on a really large concert at that same time of the halftime to give people an opportunity to watch something different. And I think that's super cool.
That is cool.
But I think I've justified things in the past because it's like, well, I can't find anything else out there that's pure. And it's like, well, that's actually not true. Like, there's tons of music out there that's pure. And there's tons of artists that only put out things that are quote unquote pure. And so, yeah, but I think justification is something that I have to be careful of in justifying things.
One last point to like family brand this a bit is, it kind of reminds me, we have our family vision statement, which is we are committed to elevate and inspire. And I think that can be a lens for us. Like, is this thing that I am listening to, reading, watching, is it elevating and inspiring me?
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
So if you have a phrase like that, like who do you want to be as a family, and are the things that we're consuming, is it getting us closer to being that thing? I think that could be a good lens to look through.
Yeah, that is actually really, it's like this song, this friend, this social media account, this movie, this music. Is this going to elevate and inspire me? Is this going to bring more light into my life or not? And again, it's pretty, most people would like, again, we could justify anything, but you would know, like, yes or no.
So I would like to come back in conclusion to this word that you used earlier. And I'm like, okay, this is the word of the episode.
In conclusion, delete all Taylor Swift. Just kidding.
No, like as I said at the beginning, this was not about any specific artist.
It's not.
Like we each have our things that we like listening to, like watching. For you, maybe you're like, I would never listen to that artist ever. But maybe there is something else that like came to your mind as you're listening that you could read. But the word is vigilant. I looked it up just now. It says keeping careful watch for possible danger. And I just love that word. So I think that is the challenge this week. And always really to be vigilant, like, because it doesn't necessarily, it's not physical danger, but it is danger, being
Spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual danger about what we are consuming, what we are allowing our children consume, because as we become.
All right, so that is it for today's episode of the Family Brand Podcast.
But before you go, we have something fun for you.
Yeah, like if you've ever wondered, okay, so how's our family culture actually doing? We've got an incredible quiz for that.
Good news, it's quick, it's free, and when you're done with that quiz, we'll even email you this awesome PDF full of practical ways to strengthen your family culture right away.
So all you have to do is go to familybrand.com/quiz, take the quiz, grab the PDF.
We'll see you next time.